Hey there, welcome to Pepper Geek. In today's video, we're testing out these 5 bagged potting soils to see which grows the healthiest pepper plants. So I know the available potting soils in your area may differ from ours, but these are very popular and are pretty well known around the country. Of course, you may know of the perfect potting mix in your area, and feel free to share that in the comments, but these are 5 examples of popular brands, so we'll be pitting them against each other. So let's go through the 5 potting mixes. On the end, we have Fox Farms Happy Frog. It's one of our personal favorites for growing peppers. Next to it, we have Fox Farms Ocean Forest, another very popular potting mix. Next, we have Miracle Grow's Performance Organics Container Mix. So it's an organic version of Miracle Grow potting mix. Then we're using the non-organic Miracle Grow potting mix. And finally, we have Pro Mix Organic Vegetable and Herb Mix. The plan is to grow 5 banana peppers in the same containers and allow the potting mix to do its work. All of these contain nutrients that claim to feed the plants for several months, so we're just gonna plant the plants in the soil and allow them to grow through to fruiting. So I prepared 5 3.5-inch pots, 1 for each of the soils we'll be using, and they're all ready for transplant. One thing I've noticed already is that the consistency of each soil is quite different. So for example, the normal Miracle Grow is very fluffy and dry out of the bag, while the Ocean Forest feels a little bit more dense, and the Happy Frog has more wood chips. We can also see little flecks of fertilizer pellets. Those are slow release fertilizer in the Miracle Grow. And Pro Mix is very dense and sort of clumpy. It feels like it has manure or something heavy in it. And here are the seedlings. These are banana peppers. We grew this variety, the Goddess Hybrid, last year and just loved it. Huge peppers, did really well in the ground and in our raised beds. And now we'll see how it does in containers using these potting soils. So all the plants are doing equally well. This is a hybrid, so we don't expect much variation across these. We realize this isn't a scientific test. We don't have 50 plants in each of the potting soils, but it's still fun to see how things turn out. Today is transplanting day, so we'll be transplanting our banana peppers into the potting mix into 3.5-inch nursery pots where they'll be growing indoors for about a month before they go outside. Okay, so it's late May and the plants have been hardening off, and today is transplanting day. And this will essentially be the final step here. We're just gonna be watering these plants and keeping them in the same full sun conditions all season long and seeing what the potting soil can do. So far, there are 2 standout plants. We have Happy Frog on the end, which I'm happy to say is doing pretty well among the group. And even compared to Fox Farm's own Ocean Forest, it's definitely outperforming in this case. Also performing well, Miracle Grow Performance Organics and Pro Mix Organic Potting Soil. Both of these are doing really well. I'm especially impressed with Pro Mix. The root system of this plant just before transplanting was amazing. I had to stop the process of transplanting just to take a few pictures of the root ball. It looks really amazing. I'm super impressed so far by that soil. Where I'm not so impressed are with Miracle Grow Normal Potting Mix and Fox Farm's own Ocean Forest. Both of these plants have yellowing on their leaves and they're not holding up too well to the hardening off process. Both of them are wilting very badly in the sun, so I've been having to be very careful with these plants, moving them out of the sun along with the rest just to give them a break from the heat. I plan on staking all of these plants. Some are sturdier than others. You can see Happy Frog is doing well over there, holding up on its own, but the Miracle Grow potting soil, kind of lanky, so we'll give these supports until they grow stronger. And so that's it for now. Let's check back in a few weeks and see how the plants are doing. So before we start harvesting, I wanted to do an update on the plants. They're all doing pretty well. A little bit of variation in height and pod productivity, but they're all starting to form their fruits. A couple things to note at this point. I've noticed that the Pro Mix soil seems to need less watering than the other soils. I'm not sure if this is a result of better saturating the soil early in the season or if it's something about the makeup of the soil itself. At this point, I would say that the leader is the Miracle Grow Performance Organics. It's got 5 or 6 decent sized pods already, but we've also got some great growth going on the 2 Fox Farm candidates. All of the plants look really healthy at this point, despite some beetle damage which affected our entire garden this year. They're about the same height. The Pro Mix and the Ocean Forest are these 2 plants, and they're a little bit shorter than the other 3, but all of them are putting on healthy growth and lots of peppers, so soon enough we'll be harvesting our first batch. Okay, so it's late July and it's time for our first harvest of banana peppers, and I'm really excited to see which plant so far has produced the biggest yield, although we definitely have a second flush, hopefully a third flush later in the season of peppers. But so far, I definitely have noticed a few things. First off is the plant over here, which is the normal Miracle-Gro potting soil. And I think this plant has the most height, but it's also the most spindly. The Miracle-Gro Organics plant also has some damage to some of the peppers. There seems to be some rotting on the sides of the peppers. I'm not sure if this is insect damage. I'll definitely inspect further and try to find out exactly what's causing it, but it's the only plant of the bunch that has the issue. I'm not gonna weigh that into the overall result, just gonna weigh the peppers and count them up. So far, Happy Frog, I think, is the best looking plant. It's the most robust, the strongest looking, and I think it has the most peppers so far, but we'll find out in just a minute. So I'll harvest every pepper that is ready for harvest, those that have grown to a full size and are turning yellow, that perfect banana pepper ripeness. So I'll be back in just a minute with the numbers. All right, so it's definitely too early to make any conclusions about this test so far, but I will say that all of the plants were able to produce some pretty large peppers, with the exception of the Pro Mix, which is the plant all the way on the right side for you. I wasn't able to harvest any peppers from that plant yet. There are quite a few on the plant, but they're just not mature enough yet, while other plants have already given us some peppers. So far, this plant here, the Miracle-Gro Performance Organics plant, has given us the most ripe peppers, 7 pods off of the plant for a total of 522 grams so far. Some of those were compromised, like I said, with that rot, which took away from the overall usable yield. But again, I'm not planning on holding that against this plant. Also impressive was the Ocean Forest plant. And Happy Frog only gave us 3 peppers that were ready for harvest, but it has a lot more peppers on the way, which are about halfway there. So far, 3 peppers at 224 grams, but I'm expecting this plant to take the lead in the next update. But for now, the plants are gonna go back into full sun, where they'll continue producing for us, hopefully, and we'll check back in just a bit. The next harvest came about 3 weeks later in early August, where Happy Frog took the cake with over 700 grams of pretty large peppers. Miracle-Gro Performance Organics only produced another 111 grams of peppers at this point, but again, it had the biggest harvest earlier on, so that's not surprising. Pro Mix also produced a pretty sizable harvest at over 600 grams of peppers, but things were definitely about to take a turn for the worse for the Pro Mix plant. About 1 month later, we had our third harvest with a pretty sizable yield again. Most of the plants produced between 400 and 500 grams of peppers at this point, with the exception of Pro Mix Organic Soil, producing just 211 grams. Definitely an underwhelming yield and pretty surprising. That puts Pro Mix at less than half of what the other plants were producing at this time of the year. So that brings us to now, mid-October, and the plants are really on their last legs. They definitely would have benefited from a mid-season fertilizer, and I would definitely recommend that if you're growing your peppers. Give them that extra boost mid-season to continue those nice larger yields. You can see the pale yellowish leaves on these plants compared to plants that had plenty of fertilizer. They're definitely looking a bit tired. So now on to the moment we've been waiting for, the results of this little experiment. Let's start with the price of these soils. Now, these results may seem a little bit skewed, and that's because I had to purchase these soils at different sizes. So when you purchase more of something, you always get it for a little bit cheaper by volume. So I broke it down and priced out the price per cubic foot of the soils that I was able to purchase. Now, the cheapest soil per cubic foot was actually the Fox Farm Happy Frog, which is pretty surprising because I consider it a premium soil. Now, Happy Frog only comes in 2 cubic foot bags of soil. That's a pretty big bag of soil, so you are sort of forced to buy in bulk. But when you do the calculation, $11.50 per cubic foot. The next cheapest soil was Miracle-Gro Potting Mix, as you might expect. That's the non-organic potting mix, $12.35 per cubic foot. Again, I got a smaller bag of this, so if you did upsize and get the 2 cubic foot bag, you could probably save, and it might fall below that price point of Fox Farms Happy Frog. Next was Miracle-Gro Performance Organics at $13.38, and after that came Fox Farms Ocean Forest at $15.33. They're a little deceptive there. Those bags are just 1.5 cubic feet compared to the 2 cubic feet of Happy Frog, but they're the same price, so you're definitely paying more for Ocean Forest. And finally, ProMix Organics was the most expensive, but I had to buy this online, and I also bought a really small bag of it, so I had to pay for shipping, which is not usually the case when you're buying soil. Next up was the average fruit size, and ProMix actually won this one at 67 grams on average. That's a pretty large fruit on average. It definitely produced some really nice looking peppers when it did, but it fell short when it came to overall yield. Ocean Forest was right behind it at 66 grams, followed by Performance Organics at 59 grams, Happy Frog at 50, and Miracle Gro Potting Mix at 40 grams. But definitely take those numbers with a grain of salt, because at the end of the season, we did get a lot of smaller peppers like this one, which definitely skew the results on average weight. Next up were the total number of fruits, and Happy Frog takes the cake here again with 32 total ripe peppers off of this one plant. The next highest was Miracle Gro Potting Mix with 27 pods. After that was Miracle Gro Performance Organics with 20. Ocean Forest after that with 17, and finally ProMix with just 13 peppers throughout the whole season. And now on to the most important metric of this test, which is the overall harvested weight. And up on top, we have Fox Farms Happy Frog at 1,612 grams of overall harvested weight. That's over 400 additional grams over our next highest yield, which was Miracle Gro Performance Organics at 1183. In third place was Fox Farms Ocean Forest at 1126. Next down was Miracle Gro Potting Mix at 1091 grams. And finally, we have ProMix Organic at 868. So the overall winner is pretty clearly Fox Farms Happy Frog, and I'm pretty pleased with that because we've been recommending Happy Frog for several years now, and I can still remember the first time we used Happy Frog and the results were clearly better. I can't really speak to exactly why this might be. The ingredient list on Happy Frog is pretty detailed, and there are some unique ingredients, including mycorrhizal fungi. So I think for us, we're just gonna continue doing what we have been doing, which is using Happy Frog. But of course, there are many other potting soils, so let us know your favorite potting mix. If you have something unique in your area that works really well for growing peppers, we're always interested in trying new products, and getting the best possible yield from our potted pepper plants is priority number one, so let us know your suggestions in the comments. Now, of course, this experiment is not statistically significant because we only had one plant for each category. You'd really need many, many more plants if you wanted to get some definitive results. There's every possibility that the ProMix plant was just kind of a dud, but I will say that all 5 of the plants were pretty healthy, very strong, and the ProMix plant actually did really well early on. It just didn't follow through with a high yield. Let me know if you like this type of video because we have many more experiment ideas, and if you really like this type of content, we'll definitely do them in subsequent seasons. Thanks so much for watching Pepper Geek, and I'll see you next time.